Spousal communication. Hey, what's that all about? Well, in American law, there are a number of communications that are privileged, meaning that the parties to the communication cannot reveal it to anybody else. Example being, this is something we're all aware of, is between an attorney and the attorney's client. Neither of those parties can reveal the information that is passed from one to the other, particularly the attorney. Well, there are other communications that are privileged, one of which is between a husband and a wife. Communications that take place between the two are privileged, and someone cannot compel them, the husband or the wife, to reveal what took place in that communication. Well, how does this actually work? Well, it takes us to this week's case. Lasiba Matsoka was a man who was living in North Carolina. He wound up being actually accused of rape and then subsequently convicted of rape. Now, one of the bits of evidence that was extremely important in the trial was his ex-wife testified that during their marriage, they were in the car, he was reading an article about the rape that had taken place. He was not accused at the time. And as he read the article and saw a picture, a composite picture of the suspect, he began crying. Now, she didn't reveal that to anybody until years later. And when she did, the police then got a DNA sample from him, and they linked the DNA to the victim of the rape, and he was charged and later convicted of that rape. Well, on his behalf, his attorneys began arguing on appeal that the evidence of the fact he was crying should have never come into existence. And that evidence as to him crying was what led his wife to report him, and therefore, if that hadn't come in, he would have never been arrested. So him crying should never have come in by virtue of the fact it was a privileged communication between his wife and him, because at the time they were married. They later got a divorce. And because they were married, it was privileged. She should not have revealed that information. Well, it went up to an appellate court, North Carolina. Went up to an appellate court, and there the court had to decide. And one of the things the court really had to decide was the fact that he was crying, was that intended as communication? Now, we all know that there are certain acts that people engage in that are certainly intended to be a communication. Doing this can indicate something such as, hey, bring it to an end, get out of here, or, hey, let's get rid of that guy. Long story short, there are all kinds of things that people do that are intended to communicate, and as a communication, it's subject to any kind of a privilege that exists in that communication, such as the spousal privilege. Well, in this instance, the attorney argued that it was intended as a communication. The prosecutor argued it was not intended as a communication. It was something that his wife simply observed. Well, the court looked at this. They came away, having considered all of the evidence, and said, you, prosecutor, are right. This was not intended as a communication. It was something that she simply observed, and as such, the information can come in. Okay. We bring you this case, as we bring you cases every week, so you understand how the law actually works. The law dealing with evidence can sometimes be very complicated, and here we've seen somewhat of an example of it. I'm David Allen.